Now, what's Photoshop without some special effects? Let's talk about Photoshop's filters. Now, I'll bet you a coffee that you've already messed around with Photoshop's filters a little bit, because that's usually where people head first, especially if they're new to Photoshop and maybe a friend or a family member or a coworker has shown them just a little bit. Usually filters is the first place they go, because that's where all the wacky, crazy stuff is. You know, taking a photograph and making it look like it was painted in watercolors, or taking a photograph and making it look like a photocopy or something like this, right? So let's have some fun here. What I'm going to do is go and open up the next sample file that we'll use here, and I'm going to use a sample file called Scientist2. Look for him inside the project files. This is a cartoon that I drew at the kitchen table one Saturday morning, and then of course colored him inside Photoshop. And let's use this guy as our example here. Now, most of the filters, they sort of break into two categories, or they sort of fall into two categories. Some filters are destructive. They're just crazy, fun, wacky, right? Like making this guy look like he's made out of chrome or molten lead or something like that, right? And then other filters are actually corrective. Like there's a filter called Unsharp Mask, which is used to help sharpen up photographs, right? So again, there's sort of two camps happening here. Further to that, most filters work in a similar way as well. Most of them have a very similar interface, and I'll show you this interface in just a second. And you know, some filters open up inside a massive dialog box called the filter gallery, while other filters open up inside their own dialog box, and I'll show you this as well. So to get you started here, I think what I'll do is I'll start you off on one of the more simple filters, although this is a filter that a lot of people use a lot of the time. He's called Add Noise, and this is a great way to add sort of a film grain look to a photo or to a mad scientist cartoon if you happen to have one kicking around. So I'm going to head to the filter menu up at the top here, and then I'm going to head down to noise, and then I'll choose Add Noise. Okay, great. Now, this is an example of a filter opening up inside his own dialog box, the Add Noise dialog box. A lot of common elements here. We have a preview checkbox. I can hold down Alt or Option and get my reset button showing up. We've seen this in a number of different Photoshop dialog boxes. And then, of course, down towards the bottom, Settings. Now, in this main area here, you have your preview, which you can use to get an idea of what your cartoon or what your photograph is going to look like with the applied filter. But, you know, if your preview checkbox is turned on, you may as well just look inside your document window. So this little preview window I usually just ignore. I don't even bother looking at it, really. I'm more looking over inside my document, to be honest. Now, as far as Add Noise is concerned, we have an amount slider, and very quickly things can get out of hand in terms of adding noise here. So you don't want to go too crazy. But again, it's all sort of up to you. You can kind of decide what you think looks good there. So I'm around 15, 16%. Below that, we have our distribution. We can go uniform or we can go Gaussian. It's entirely up to you. Just a different method for distributing the noise inside your image. And then my personal favorite is monochromatic. I can turn that on, and now I get black and white noise, or grayscale noise, if you will. And I'll drop this down a little bit more, maybe. So again, kind of a neat film grain effect there. Lots of fun. Anyway, go ahead and click on OK. Now, of course, this almost goes without saying, but the noise that I just added to my cartoon is permanent. It's a permanent change. So in just a little while, I'll show you how to work with filters in a non-destructive way. But before we get to that, I want to show you this thing called the filter gallery, and we'll do that next.